Chapter 81 Advancing to Rank 1. Advancing to Rank 1 as an Awakener wasn't complicated. According to what Michael had read on the forum, advancing was akin to unlocking a power chain, allowing oneself to grow further. The more chains were unlocked, or rather, the more one advanced, the closer they came to becoming a higher being. A warm sensation coursed through Michael's body as he prepared to advance. He had seated himself in a lotus position, as recommended in the posts he had read. It was suggested either to sit or lie down during the advancement process, since many things could happen during it. Michael had often wondered what those things could be, but now that he was experiencing it firsthand, he understood. The warm sensation grew hotter until it felt like his head was on the verge of bursting from the heat. Sweat began dripping from his body, but he couldn't even groan in protest. His body became sluggish, so sluggish that even his thoughts started to slow down. Panic welled up inside him as he tried to resist the overwhelming sensation, but it was futile. His body betrayed him, and he fell into deep sleep. Lucky and Prince, who stood at opposite ends of the room, flanking their master, kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. They made no move to disturb him as he remained seated, his breathing steady despite his unconscious state. To them, there was nothing wrong with their master. If anything, their senses told them the opposite. Their master's aura was slowly growing stronger. Negative energy, the very essence that fueled their existence, seemed to gather around him in increasing amounts. The connection between master and summon deepened with every passing moment, becoming more tangible. To their simple minds, their master was perfectly fine. In fact, Prince's attention was more focused on the moss growing on the walls. Having watched his elder brother nibble at it several times before spitting it out, he assumed it must not taste very good despite its appealing appearance. Lucky, on the other hand, was seriously considering giving it another try. And so, the two undead stood in silence, contemplating moss and keeping their silent vigil while their master underwent his advancement. The hours passed quietly, with only the faint sound of Michael's rhythmic breathing to break the stillness. What happened? Michael muttered as he stretched his body, feeling a strange but invigorating sensation. He felt different. Strength coursed through him, and his mind was unusually sharp, as if it were processing several thoughts simultaneously without effort. Yes, I finished my advancement quest. His voice trailed off as he took in his surroundings. The room seemed brighter than before, the dim glow of dawn filtering through cracks and crevices. Startled, he stood up in a rush, only to launch himself upward with unexpected force, slamming his head into the ceiling above. Boom! A cloud of dust erupted from the impact, and Michael tumbled back down to the ground with a loud thud. Stay tuned with Empire. The noise startled Lucky and Prince, who had been vigilantly guarding him. Both rushed to his side. Yes, I advanced, Michael exclaimed, finally piecing together the situation. His excitement was palpable, though he didn't dare move again, wary of his newfound strength. The earlier mishap had proven how much his physical capabilities had increased, and fortunately, his tougher body had prevented him from being injured and feeling. I didn't know advancing could cause unconsciousness. Judging by the brightness of the surroundings, it was already morning. Michael realized a significant amount of time must have passed since he fell unconscious. However, any concern he had was quickly replaced by excitement and anticipation. Sure, he had been strong before, but his strength had always been under control. This lack of coordination could only mean one thing: a significant leap in his physical power. Ignoring Lucky and Prince, who stood protectively by his side, Michael turned his attention to the glowing panel before him. The notifications he had missed. You have advanced to Rank 1, Level 1, Level 11. Your class has advanced to Adept Necromancer. Your soul has grown stronger. You have gained 10 extra contract slots. You have gained the skill Acid Shot a. You have gained the skill Bone Spear a. Your stats have significantly increased from your advancement. Your strength stat has increased. Your agility stat has increased. Your constitution stat has increased. Your intelligence stat has increased. Hey, Michael couldn't help but laugh foolishly. Advancing through ranks was a good feeling. If only it could happen every day. I got 2 new skills plus 10 extra contract slots. These extra contract slots meant they were not included in the 2 he'd unlock every level, making them a great addition. The skills must have come from the increase in stats, while another likely came from his class advancement. He'd need to check which was at intermediate mastery to confirm which was which. As for his stats, even without the panel telling him, Michael already knew. The dust clinging to his body was enough proof. However, though he was curious about how much his stats had increased, there were still more notifications to check. Ones that excited Michael greatly. It was time for the special quest rewards. You have advanced to rank 1. Your reward is being distributed. Level UP. You have leveled up to level 12. Level UP. You have leveled up to level 13. Level UP. You have leveled up to level 14. Level UP. You have leveled up to level 15. All your stats have increased by 8 points. You have gained the skill Slow Curse a. You have gained the skill Bone Armor a. You have gained the skill Corpse Explosion a. A status updated. Our name, Michael Norman. Class, Adept Necromancer. A level, 15. Key XP, 0 by 17,718. Our strength, 30.42. Our agility, 41.16. Constitution, 31.72. Our intelligence, 110.1. Our attribute points, 30. Skills, Undead Summoning, Undead Revival, Detect, Basic Shot, Share Senses, Spearmanship, Acid Shot, Bone Spear, Slow Curse, Bone Armor, Corpse Explosion. Talent, Infinite Evolution. Class Skill, Contract Slot, 24 ets. A gift, Mark of Origin. Chapter 82 New Skills. Better stats. He had them. More skills. He had those too. The land of origin felt like heaven for a moment, as Michael struggled to contain his excitement. Looking at his updated stats, he was confident he could be the hell out of his pre-advancement self. Of course, that was if his strength as a necromancer wasn't factored in. Also, Michael felt there was something much more about his rank advancement. Advancing to rank 1 had done more than just grant him better stats and new skills. It felt like something fundamental within him had changed. Perhaps because he was still relatively weak, Michael couldn't fully grasp the deeper transformations that had occurred, those that weren't explicitly reflected in his panel. But one thing he did notice. His senses had become sharper. His perception improves alongside his agility stat. But the enhancement now felt like more than just an increase in numbers. For one, he could now detect something in the air that had been imperceptible before. Mana. It clung to him, so close it felt almost intimate. Michael couldn't help but wonder if advancing a few more times might allow him to actually see mana. Was that even possible? He had no idea. Michael turned his attention back to his newly updated status. Our name, Michael Norman. A class, Adept Necromancer. A level, 15. Key XP, 0 by 17,718. Our strength, 30.4. Our agility, 41.1. Constitution, 31.7. Our intelligence, 110.1. Our attribute points, 30. Skills, Undead Summoning, Undead Revival, Detect, Basic Shot, Share Senses, Spearmanship, Acid Shot, Bone Spear, slow curse, bone armor, corpse explosion. Talent, infinite evolution. Class skill, contract slot, 24 deaths. A gift, mark of origin. The name of his class had changed. It wasn't that his class itself had changed, but rather his rank among those considered necromancers. Just like how, as a cultivator, you were only considered a supernatural being upon reach ing rank 1. Even though you might already be twice as strong as an ordinary human before awakening your life seed. Awakeners followed a similar pattern. However, the latter was much more extreme. Even in the unranked stage, they wielded great power, but the current Michael was a prime example of the stark difference between ranks. Just the stats increase enough was overwhelming. From the beginning, stats weren't just simple arithmetic like 1 plus 1 equals 2. They were more like 1 plus 1 equals 3. The stronger one became, the more exaggerated the difference. Sometimes, 1 plus 1 could even equal 10. Every increase in stats represented a qualitative change, both physically and magically. Michael, for instance, had 30 points in his strength stat, which made him 30 times stronger than the average man. Yet, despite his enhanced physical capabilities, he didn't appear to be a bulky hulk. His physique was more muscular and defined than before his awakening, but his body hadn't swollen unnaturally. This was because the increase in strength changed his internal structure. It transformed the properties of his blood and flesh, made his bones denser, and toughened his skin. On paper, it seemed like his power was only 30 times that of an average human, but in reality, it was much greater due to these internal enhancements. The same applied to his intelligence stat. Beyond the changes it may have brought to his brain, the improvements to his mana pool were not about sheer size or volume. Instead, his mana had undergone a transformation, becoming denser, purer, and more efficient. This was why Awakeners' skills often scaled naturally with their progression, rarely falling behind despite their mastery level. Purer and denser mana enhance the potency and efficiency of their abilities. In contrast, cultivator mages had to actively study and create tiers of magic to wield stronger spells. A labor-intensive process that Awakeners could bypass entirely if they wished. This disparity often felt unfair to the cultivators, but it was the reality of their differing paths to power. Michael only took a glance at his stats, only pausing at his intelligence stat, and went to what interested him next on his panel. His skills. Skills: Undead Summoning, Undead Revival, Detect, Basic Shot, Share Senses, Spearmanship, Acid Shot, Bone Spear, Slow Curse, Bone Armor, Corpse Explosion. Ignoring the skills he was already familiar with, Michael started checking out the new ones. Acid Shot. Basic Mastery, Proficiency, 0.07%. Acid Shot allows the user to launch a corrosive projectile that melts through materials and deals continuous damage. Range: can be launched up to 5 meters. Enjoy new tales from Empire. After reading the description of the skill, Michael's eyes twitched slightly. The skill reminded him of a particular type of monster he loathed: acid slimes. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Acid slimes were annoying creatures, and this skill seemed strikingly similar to the abilities they possessed. However, Michael was confident that his version would be far superior due to his strength. Still, it needed to be tested. Since this is at basic mastery, the next one should be the skill that likely came from advancing, he muttered to himself. And Michael was right. Bone Spear. Intermediate Mastery, Proficiency, 15.2%. Bone Spear summons a sharp, ethereal spear made of bone to pierce through enemies. Travels up to 10 meters. Finally, an actual Necromancer attack skill. Michael exclaimed inwardly, a smile spreading across his face. Compared to Acid Shot, which he was still grateful to have, this one sounded far more effective. Even its mastery or level was higher. But, as always, he'd need to test them all to gauge their true effectiveness. Still riding the wave of excitement, Michael turned his attention to the other skills he had received as rewards for his perfect quest rating. Slow curves, basic mastery, proficiency, 0.5%. Slow curves reduces the target's movement and reaction speed, weakening their ability to evade attacks. Decreases target speed by 20%. Duration lasts for 8 seconds. Of bone armor, basic mastery, proficiency, 0.3%. Bone armor forms a protective layer of bone over the user, absorbing damage from physical attacks. Corpse explosion, basic mastery, proficiency, 0.7%. Corpse explosion detonates the remains of a defeated enemy, causing a devastating area attack. Explosion radius, 4 meters. Chapter 83 Extraordinary. All three skills were diverse and useful in their own ways. At least compared to Acid Shot, Michael felt no oddness or hesitation about them. His personal favorites were the Bone series skills, Bone Spear, and Bone Armor. One provided protection, while the other offered a long-range attack. They were perfect for someone like Michael, who wanted some action but didn't want to be the action. "I'll have to test these skills out when I can," he muttered to himself. Though he could test them immediately, since they required mana, and he had plenty of that now, his current priority lay elsewhere. Controlling his strength. If the current him returned to the real world, destroying a building would be the least of his concerns. Killing someone by accident wasn't out of the realm of possibility. And then there's also that. Michael's eyes shifted to his talent section. Talent. Infinite evolution. Evolution points. 165. It's still a lot. Though he had expected to retain some evolution points after upgrading all his undead to raring creatures, it was reassuring to confirm it. This should be enough to evolve both Lucky and Prince. Now that he had reached Ed rank 1, he no longer feared his undead advancing to rank 2 ahead of him. Currently, Lucky was at level 18 with Prince just a level behind. Evolving them would undoubtedly boost their prowess, but to what extent was still a mystery. Either way, after their evolution, dealing with the gargoyle outside was more than possible. The thought filled Michael with excitement. Though it had only been a few days, he felt like he'd been living in a cage in the land of origin. Hopefully, today would be the day he finally left it behind. First, I need to get better control over my strength. If every move he made sent him crashing into walls and breaking his surroundings, he wouldn't need to worry about whether Lucky and Prince could defeat the gargoyle. Instead, his biggest concern would be accidentally delivering himself straight into the monster's jaws. Michael slowly turned himself to the ground and began a series of push-ups, deliberately moving at a snail's pace to avoid launching himself off the floor. Each repetition was measured, allowing him to acclimate to his newfound strength. After several minutes of finding a steady rhythm, he transitioned to other exercises, focusing on full-body control. Eventually, he brought out his spear, intending to hone his balance and control further. Training with the weapon would not only improve his coordination but also increase his proficiency in spearmanship. Awaken. Forgot to include this skill in the status panel earlier. It's added now. My bad. 2 hours passed like this, and the once dim surroundings had brightened considerably. Michael's body dripped with sweat, but unlike before his awakening, he felt a renewed connection with his movements. His control over his body had returned. Why was someone as strong as him still sweating? Well, even gods would perspire under enough pressure. Discover hidden tales at Empire. Michael panted, returning his almost broken spear to his storage space. He'd done his best to restrain his strength and avoid damaging the weapon, but it had been a losing battle. The spear, made from ordinary materials, had held up admirably but was clearly reaching its limit. No wonder it's advised that an Awakener should retreat after advancement, he muttered. If this is what being rank 1 feels like, then what about rank 2 Awakeners? And above that, how the hell do cultivators later manage to match them? Do they go through heavenly tribulations or something? Random thoughts flitted through Michael's mind as he cooled down. Once he steadied his breath, his gaze sharpened. Lucky. It was time. His undead companion appeared before him, tilting its head in puzzlement. Michael studied his strongest undead closely. It had only been a few days, but the bond they shared was undeniable. It hadn't yet developed into emotional attachment, but Lucky was a creature he could trust to guard his back. Michael wasn't naive. He might not have lived long on Earth or amassed much experience in life, but he wasn't foolish. On Earth, death could come in countless ways, so in a magical world, the dangers were surely magnified. Companions here had even more reasons to betray one another, but not his undead. They lived to serve him. These silly, loyal creatures were ones he could trust implicitly. Undead Red-Thorn Wolf LV, 18. Rank, Rare. Evolved to Extraordinary for 125 evolution points. Yes. The familiar blinding light erupted once more, this time so intense that Michael had to keep his eyes tightly shut. Even so, his senses picked up on the changes happening around him. Lucky's aura became violent, surging with power as it grew stronger by the second. So did his size. That familiar feeling of oppressive strength washed over Michael again, but instead of fear, it brought him joy. His undead was definitely getting stronger. However, the situation took a turn when Michael sensed Lucky's body expanding so much that it began to press against the ceiling of the dorm room, which stood nearly 6 meters high. Dust and debris fell from above, creating a cloud of smoke that signaled the completion of Lucky's transformation. A few moments later, as the dust settled, Michael could finally get a clear view of his undead's new form. Lucky now towered at an imposing 5 meters, his massive frame radiating raw power and menace. His once green-tinted fur had transformed into a grayish, stone-like texture with subtle streaks of vibrant green running through it. The thick mane of thorned vines around his neck had grown even more fearsome, writhing as if alive, each thorn dripping with toxic sap. The vines now extended across his back and legs, forming a living, venomous cloak that moved with airy fluidity. Lucky's claws had elongated, becoming razor-sharp and gleaming with a poisonous sheen. The first thought that crossed Michael's mind was, yeah, Lucky's a walking poison factory now. And the second, there's no way I'm ever riding you. He stared at the massive creature in awe, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips. What a beast. Your rare undead Red-Thorn Wolf has evolved to Extraordinary Undead Venomthorn Ravager. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager, plant control O skill has advanced to Advanced Mastery. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager, poison O skill has advanced to Advanced Mastery. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager has gained the skill Viral Growth . Your undead Venomthorn Ravager has gained the skill Toxic Resurgence . Chapter 84 Another one. Your rare undead Red-Thorn Wolf has evolved to Extraordinary Undead Venomthorn Ravager. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager, plant control O skill has advanced to Advanced Mastery. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager, poison O skill has advanced to Advanced Mastery. Your undead Venomthorn Ravager has gained the skill Viral Growth . Your undead Venomthorn Ravager has gained the skill Toxic Resurgence . Advanced Mastery. Michael wondered what kind of power it held. To be honest, a part of him felt like he was gaining strength too quickly as a Necromancer. Aside from the gargoyle, there hadn't been anything else in the past few days capable of challenging him if he marked them as an opponent. But Michael loved this kind of progress. Though the ratio of effort to reward seemed skewed due to his talent, he believed he had worked hard for it too. And that wasn't entirely wrong. He was a drug addict now because of everything. While instructing his dangerous-looking undead to remain still, Michael pulled up Lucky's status panel. Venom-Torn Ravager LV25 Max. Oh, name, Lucky. EXP 798,789/1,021,752. Rank Extraordinary. Skills: Bite, Plant Control, Advanced Mastery, Poison, Advanced Mastery, Viral Growth, Basic Mastery, New. Toxic Resurgence, Basic Mastery, New. Master, Michael Norman. Just like its master, Lucky's status panel was beginning to look luxurious. Michael's eyes immediately went to Lucky's level. Seeing level 25 written in bold brought a grin to his face. The peak of rank 1, he muttered. This was Lucky's strength on paper, but Michael firmly believed his undead was stronger than most rank 2 monsters. Otherwise, the concept of ranks would be a joke. How strong exactly? Michael had no clue. Neither he nor his undead had been pushed far enough to go all out, leaving his sense of power levels somewhat distorted. What he did know, however, was simple. That gargoyle is so screwed. At this point, Michael wasn't worried about facing the gargoyle anymore. Instead, he began to wonder what challenges might await him after defeating it. Unfortunately, evolving Lucky hadn't pushed him to rank 2, but he was close. The gap between rank 1 and rank 2 was massive, and the sheer amount of experience points required made that clear. Thinking about how much grinding he'd need to do in the future to ascend to rank 2 almost ruined his mood. However, when his eyes shifted to Lucky's skill section, his excitement returned. Skills: Bite, Plant Control, Advanced Mastery, Poison, Advanced Mastery, Viral Growth, Basic Mastery, New. Toxic Resurgence, Basic Mastery, New. Lucky's 2 previous skills had directly advanced to Advanced Mastery, and 2 new skills had been unlocked. Michael didn't yet know how powerful these new or upgraded skills were, but their appearance alone brought him joy. After all, the more skills, the better, right? Without wasting time, Michael eagerly began inspecting each skill, starting with the new ones. He moved quickly, though, as there was still another undead he was eager to evolve, Prince, to test if his theory was correct. Viral Growth, Basic Mastery, Vertical Bar Proficiency, 0.5%. Viral Growth enables the summoning of venomous plants to serve as environmental hazards. Current effects at Basic Mastery. Your next read awaits at Empire. Summon Radius. Plants emerge within a 20-meter radius of the user. Spore Effect. Summoned plants release toxic spores into the air, dealing damage over time to enemies within range. A Toxic Resurgence. Basic Mastery. Vertical Bar Proficiency. 0.8%. Toxic Resurgence activates when the user is injured, releasing venomous spores to harm enemies and enhance the user's regeneration. Current effects at Basic Mastery. Spore Burst Radius, 10 meters around the user. Regeneration Boost. Regenerates minor wounds more quickly while the ability is active than the previous skills that advanced in mastery level. Poison Advanced Mastery. Vertical Bar Proficiency, 26.2%. At Advanced Mastery, Poison becomes significantly more potent, enhancing both offensive and debilitating capabilities. Current effects at Advanced Mastery. Potency Increase. Toxin deals moderate damage per second and heavily weakens the target's physical abilities. Strength, agility, and mobility reduced by up to 30%, depending on the target's strength. Effect duration. Persists as long as the toxin is active. Potency increases over time as more poison accumulates in the target's system. Fatal potential. Can outright kill weaker opponents or severely cripple stronger ones if left unchecked. Of plant control, advanced mastery. Vertical bar proficiency, 42.5%. At advanced mastery, plant control evolves into a highly versatile ability, granting enhanced range, precision, and manipulation. Current effects at advanced mastery. Extended range. The ability's range increases to 300 meters, enabling control over plant life across a much larger area. Growth acceleration. Plants can grow to full maturity within seconds, allowing the user to summon massive vines, trees, or thorny barricades for combat or defense. Complex manipulation allows for intricate movements such as forming weapons, example vine whips or spear-like branches, or creating traps, example snaring enemies with roots. Life force drain. Certain controlled plants can drain the vitality of enemies, restoring a small portion of the user's mana or stamina with each successful attack. Lucky's skill set was becoming ridiculously strong. Michael could only mutter, as expected of an extraordinary creature. Looking at Lucky, Michael realized he didn't want to see another in the same rank anytime soon. The power that came from evolving Lucky made Michael crave more evolution points. However, his mind soon cleared. If evolving Lucky again required 5 times the previous amount, he would need 625 evolution points. With his current daily rate, it would take about a month to save up enough for Lucky's next evolution, not considering his other undead, especially not Prince. Though high combat prowess was tempting, having multiple strong undead was even more attractive to a necromancer like him, if not most if they could afford it. For now, there's no need to evolve Lucky, Michael decided. His experience points are close to advancing to rank 2, so we can accumulate them slowly. Michael's priority now was to strengthen his undead and increase his level. Of course, there was still another undead to evolve before the others could compete for a piece of the cake. With that in mind, Michael dismissed Lucky to the netherworld and summoned Prince, whom he had put away during the commotion of Lucky's evolution. Chapter 85. Heading out. Evolving Prince didn't cause as much commotion as Lucky, but the increase in power was still significant. I was right, Michael mused. Being stronger before evolution results in a stronger form afterward. However, it seems that's all it is, a stronger self, not a more advanced evolution. Michael smiled as he examined the transformed Prince. Gaining a deeper understanding of the rules surrounding his talents always brought him a sense of satisfaction. Undead Redthorn v. 25. Max. Continue reading at Empire. Name, Prince. He XP, 235,789/1,021,752. Rank, Rare. Skills, Bite, Plant Control, Intermediate Mastery, Poison, Basic Mastery, New. A Master, Michael Norman. Prince's skill set was less impressive than Lucky's, but it was only a matter of time before he caught up. Of course, compared to Lucky's rapid ascension, Prince's progress would take longer since Michael planned to focus on his other undead as well. As Michael glanced at the poison skill on Prince's panel, an odd expression flickered across his face. It all began with this evolution. During the first and second evolutions, Michael had assumed that the entire evolution route for forest wolves would revolve around nature, and while it still did to some extent, it wasn't in the way he had initially expected. The once nature-bound forest wolves had now turned into poison sacks, and judging by the direction of their evolution, it was only going to become more extreme. Though the irony was amusing, Michael didn't mind having such undead in his arsenal. The only real concern was ensuring he didn't accidentally succumb to their poison himself. Now that all the undead requiring evolution were taken care of, Michael took one last look at his talent before heading out. It was finally time to see what the ruin and the land of origin had to offer. Talent. Infinite evolution. Evolution points. 15. Michael tried not to feel disheartened as his evolution points dropped from 3 digits to 2. However, thinking about how much strength these points had brought him, he couldn't help but feel that all his sacrifices so far were worth it. In the end, he could always regain the points he spent. The real issue was his own impatience. Michael retraced his steps to the exit of the abandoned building, where the gargoyle he had encountered a few days ago awaited. Prince stood at the ready in front of him. The sky was brightly lit now, making it the perfect time to battle a strong monster while keeping an eye on his unfamiliar surroundings. For an inexperienced explorer like Michael, it was far better to venture out during the day than at night. As for why he was already thinking about exploring when he hadn't even dealt with the gargoyle yet, Michael considered his victory a given. He didn't believe Prince would struggle to handle the gargoyle in a one-on-one fight under normal circumstances. Not only was there a 4-level difference between them, but their ranks were also the same. There was no scenario where the gargoyle could punch above its level, even if its species was high-ranked among 3-star rare monsters. The only real annoyance might be breaking through its stony body. It did look extremely sturdy. After some time walking through the corridors, Michael finally came face to face with a monster that had hindered his progress in the land of origin for days. Well, not exactly face to face. It had its back turned to him, standing eerily still like a statue. If Michael didn't have detect even he might have been deceived. Gargoyle LV 20. Rank rare. An old gargoyle, weakened after years of neglect. It's even dropped a level. Michael thought, surprised. He recalled the words of a senior on the forum, who had mentioned that it took an incredibly long time for artificial creatures like gargoyles to degrade. According to the post, such creatures wouldn't even lose a level after 50 years. Based on this and how Michael had described the abandoned dorm, the senior had estimated this ruin to be at least 100 years old. That was plenty of time for valuable things to be destroyed. However, with his growing understanding of ruins from the forum, Michael knew one thing. The older the ruin, the more extraordinary any treasure within it would be if it was still intact and usable. Of course, finding something was another matter entirely. But if he did, it would be an absolute treasure. The thought of exploration and treasure hunting filled Michael with anticipation. He mentally commanded Prince to advance while stepping back and summoning his rank 1 undead, a verdant wolf, to guard him. Once ready, Michael gave the command to attack. Prince vanished in an instant. Despite moving faster than he had in the level 2 dimension crack at the ape region, there was no violent gust of wind accompanying his speed. This oddity barely registered with Michael, as his attention was quickly diverted. The moment Prince disappeared, a loud sound echoed, the clash of the heavy objects colliding, followed by another crash. Something had slammed into the ground. Michael quickly activated Share Senses on Prince to grasp what was happening. He had no chance of keeping up with a battle fought at such terrifying speeds with his own eyes. Luckily, Prince was within 100 meters, so the skill worked perfectly. Michael's vision shifted to the familiar black and white world of Share Senses. He saw that Prince standing a few meters away from the gargoyle, which had been sent crashing into the ground and created a shallow pit. Strangely, Prince didn't approach the downed creature. Michael didn't need to ask why. A short distance beyond the fallen gargoyle stood a tall, tower-like structure. But what made Michael's heart race wasn't the tower itself. It was the 2 massive statues guarding the entrance. Each statue stood about 4 meters tall and bore an uncanny resemblance to the gargoyle in the pit, with one glaring difference. They had wings. And those wings were spreading. Chapter 86 Battle. Through Prince's vision, Michael didn't need to activate detect it to recognize the danger in front of him. The 2 massive gargoyles looked like the bigger, stronger siblings of the one Prince had just ambushed. It was safe to assume they were much more powerful than the one that had just shrugged off Prince's attack. Michael's instincts kicked in immediately. Stretching out his hand, he activated Undead Summoning to call forth his strongest undead. Lucky. The area near the exit of the abandoned dormitory was spacious, so there was no risk of Lucky being cramped upon summoning. A towering, hulking figure appeared, immediately scanning the surroundings. Though Lucky didn't know what he was up against, he could sense his master's urgency through their bond and prepare to act. Lucky, go help Prince, Michael commanded sharply. Lucky didn't hesitate. With a burst of speed, he barreled toward the exit. The entrance itself was too narrow for his massive frame, so he tore through it, demolishing the structure as his bulk forced its way outside. Michael maintained sheer senses with Prince, observing the situation through his eyes. The two gargoyles had already taken to the skies, hovering about 7 meters above the ground. Their flapping wings created powerful gusts of wind that swirled violently. Michael didn't bother questioning how creatures made of stone could fly. This was a magical world where anything was possible. Prince, on the other hand, wasn't concerned at all. It wasn't out of indifference. His limited intelligence simply didn't allow for such thoughts. All Prince knew was that his master had ordered him to kill the smaller gargoyle, and now these two larger ones were interfering. That made them enemies. With a loud howl, Prince activated plant control. Thick, powerful vines erupted from the ground, growing rapidly and surging toward the two airborne gargoyles. As for the original gargoyle his master had ordered him to kill, Prince had momentarily shifted focus. Your journey continues at Empire. It wasn't that he had forgotten, but his limited intelligence only allowed him to focus on one task at a time. To Prince, the two new, stronger enemies were the immediate threat. His goal was clear: destroy them first, then deal with the original target afterward. Just because Prince didn't know how to handle the situation and was acting on his limited intelligence didn't mean there wasn't someone who could do it for him. The moment Michael sent Lucky out, he immediately took control of Prince's actions. Though he didn't know exactly how powerful the gargoyles were, the pressure radiating from them was undeniable. Even from where he stood, Michael could sense they were leagues above Prince. Something within the gargoyle seemed to be awakening. Even in Prince's black and white vision, the colors around them darkened ominously. Not wanting to lose his undead after so much investment, Michael acted quickly. Just as Prince summoned vines from the ground, the area erupted with thicker, larger vines that grew even faster. They shot toward the air, aiming to entangle their targets. Lucky had arrived. Prince's movements came to a halt mid-action as Michael asserted full control. The vines paused in the air for a brief moment before adjusting their trajectory. Everything was happening so fast, yet Michael felt his brain working overtime to keep up. While his eyes couldn't track the rapid movements of the monsters and his undead, his enhanced intelligence allowed his mind to calculate and adapt in real time. For the first time since his awakening, Michael felt like he was truly fighting as a necromancer, leveraging the speed and processing power that came with his improved intelligence stat. He issued 2 quick orders, one for Lucky to deal with the 2 flying gargoyles in the air and another for Prince to finish off the injured level 20 gargoyle before it could recover and complicate the battle. The undead sprang into action immediately. Prince's vines, which had initially targeted the air, redirected toward the grounded gargoyle. The creature's body was covered in cracks, but Michael noticed through Prince's vision that they were slowly mending. Is it regenerating? What kind of monster is this? Is that even stone? While Prince charged toward his designated target, Michael shifted his focus to Lucky. With his current mastery of the sheer senses or skill, he could only link his vision to 2 undead at a time. But in this scenario, it was enough. Lucky's mastery of his abilities was far superior to Prince's. His vines were not only faster but also thicker, longer, and more durable. They moved like a living forest, chasing the 2 airborne gargoyles as they darted through the sky at incredible speed. Despite Lucky's overwhelming power, the flying gargoyles skillfully avoided the writhing mass of vines, weaving through the air like predators teasing their prey. The once clear sky was now filled with an intricate web of Lucky's vines, twisting and turning under his control. Michael was in awe. This was the true power of a creature that could contend with a rank to beast. The display was breathtaking, and for the first time, Michael fully understood the power of his undead. If a being like Lucky ever appeared on Earth, it would be no exaggeration to call it a god. For a while, the gargoyles did nothing but circle in the air, skillfully staying out of Lucky's range. However, through Lucky's eyes, Michael noticed the colors around the creatures darkening further. He didn't know what it signified, but it didn't feel like good news. Fortunately, Prince had managed to finish off the level 20 gargoyle. Michael quickly ordered him to move closer to Lucky and assist in any way possible. There was no time to check whatever notification panel had popped up or savor the satisfaction of overcoming a major obstacle. Just as Michael was starting to believe the airborne gargoyles wouldn't make an immediate move, they acted. In an instant, several magic circles of varying sizes appeared in the sky around the two gargoyles. The sight sent a shiver down Michael's spine. He didn't know what the circles were for, but he didn't need Lucky's enhanced senses to understand they weren't good news. Even from within the dorm, the overwhelming vana emanating from the magic circles was palpable. Is this why they didn't retaliate earlier? Michael clenched his fists, uncertainty gripping his mind. These creatures, seemingly made of stone, weren't mindless. They could think, strategize, and now, apparently, wield magic. He had no idea what concept governed their existence, but it was far beyond what he had anticipated. Acting quickly, Michael used his connection with the verdant wolf beside him, commanding it to create a dome of thick vines around them for protection. At the same time, he sent a mental order to his other undead within the building to brace themselves. Even though the magic circles were clearly aimed at Lucky and Prince, there was no guarantee they wouldn't be caught in the crossfire. The moment Michael issued his command, the purpose of the magic circles became clear. Stone spears materialized within the circles and, without warning, shot toward Lucky and Prince at incredible speeds. Fortunately, Michael had already commanded Lucky to protect them, and a dome of thick vines surrounded the two undead. However, the spears came in overwhelming quantities to strike the dome from all angles, slowly chipping away at it. But it would take more than this to bring Lucky down. As sections of the dome weakened or broke apart, Lucky immediately replaced them with more vines, maintaining the barrier. For a while, this exchange repeated, stone spears breaking through, only for new vines to grow in their place. Inside the dome, Michael was surrounded by darkness, unable to see what was happening outside. The vibrations and tremors, however, were unmistakable. Just as he had suspected, his side had indeed been caught in the crossfire. The vibrations weren't just from the ongoing attacks, but from the abandoned building collapsing around them. At least, for now, they were safe. Neither Lucky nor Prince appeared to be in immediate danger. Then, the vibrations stopped. Before issuing any further commands, Michael activated another one of his skills. Bone armor. Immediately, skeletal bone structures began forming around his body, wrapping him in a protective shell. The armor wasn't comprehensive, covering only key areas such as his head, chest, arms, and legs, but the sturdy bone plating gave him some reassurance. Satisfied with his protection, Michael turned his attention back to Lucky. Clear the dome and remove the debris, he ordered. The verdant wolf responded immediately, vines pulling away to reveal the aftermath of the attack. Dust and rubble shifted and fell as the dome opened, the debris on top of it pushed aside. Michael reconnected his vision with Lucky, ready to assess the situation and give the next set of commands. Chapter 87 The Plan. Though it was not the appropriate situation to be feeling happy, Michael was grateful he had not decided to take action when Lucky had become a 3-star rank undead and was at level 18. The Lucky of then would have had a tough battle against the level 20 gargoyle, but there was still a chance to win. After years of neglect, the gargoyle's prowess should be weaker than what its level even suggested. However, had Michael been impulsive back then because of his newly upgraded strength and went after the gargoyle, just to awaken these two strong gargoyles that were surprisingly very close by, he would have tasted his first death on the land of origin. Thankfully, he had waited long enough to significantly grow to a stage where he could contend with them. However, the current situation still wasn't looking good. A good monster was always one that was dead. With the dome released, Michael was now exposed to the scene outside. Lucky and Prince were still hidden with the wine dome Lucky had made, but seeing as several vines still sharply tried to get the gargoyle in the air when they attempted getting closer, it showed Lucky didn't need its eye to attack. Stay updated through Empire. Its vines could act as eyes for it. Though the sun was shining bright, the atmosphere around Michael was dim due to Lucky's vines that covered the sky. The sight immediately brought a thought to Michael. It strangely seemed like a domain. To be honest, Lucky wasn't fully going all out since it didn't use its poison abilities. From Lucky's raised name alone, it was obvious what its strong point was. However, Michael didn't have Lucky activate anything poison-related. For one, he was close by, and wasn't stupid to think that being Lucky's master made him immune to the poison it had. 2. The gargoyles were not flesh and blood monsters. Michael figured using such a skill was purely a waste of time. Also, those two had to be closer to Lucky for the skill to work, but it was obvious they weren't going to throw their advantage away. For a moment, both sides were in a stalemate. Michael thought hard about how to go about the situation when something caught his eyes. A tower. The tower those two gargoyles had been initially guarding caught Michael's attention. The sight was quite impressive. It was huge and pitch black and reached an impressive height of 10 meters. It also seemed suspiciously sturdy for a building that should have been abandoned for centuries. Michael also noticed that the area around the building didn't seem to have been spared from Lucky's rampage with plant control. Michael was just about to take it as a coincidence when he found out that somehow it also seemed to be the only area around Lucky that didn't get bombarded with the stone spears from earlier. Michael noticed this and inspected a bit more. It's deliberate. Michael could see it clearly. They're protecting the tower. Michael figured. Their initial location had been guarding the entrance of the tower, so if it was a creature whose purpose was to guard the tower, it would make sense they wouldn't try to destroy it themselves. Them leaving the area of the tower might have much to do with not wanting to get caught in vines. The behavior brought an idea to Michael, and he mentally sent a command to Lucky. A moment later, Lucky suddenly released the dome around it and also withdrew the vines that scattered around in the sky, letting the sun above finally shine its grace better on the surroundings. However, the gargoyle didn't come closer on top of all this and continued flying in the sky. Michael had already expected this, so it wasn't surprising. I want to see if you'd still stay up there, Michael caught to himself. Of course. Lucky only withdrew his vines a little back to the ground and did not cover the sky like it did before. It didn't mean it dismissed the skill. While mentally commanding the undead verdant wolf beside him to guard him, Michael gave his command to his undead to act. If protecting the tower was their purpose, then Michael did not believe the gargoyles would watch as it got destroyed. But since he was trying to bait them into coming down, he had to make his intention to attack the tower very obvious rather than actually destroying it and turning these monsters berserk if they had that mode. The tower was a restriction on that part, and Michael figured that even if he couldn't defeat these monsters, he should have no problem leaving since the gargoyle won't follow him too far if guarding the tower was their purpose and first priority. Suddenly, Prince, who had been inactive for a while, activated his skill and spread out thick, long vines that hurtled towards the tower. It looked fast, but in the midst was unnecessary movement, or rather fancy ones that actually slowed the speed. However, this was enough. And as planned, just as Michael had guessed, the gargoyles were meant to defend the tower. The moment they saw Prince's target, they charged forward at him immediately in a blink. As this was something Michael had already anticipated, he had already given an order to Lucky, who had his vines spread out, that the moment the gargoyle came within range, he should use his vines to create a dome cage, trapping them all in it and battling it out. Of course, Michael wasn't going to throw away the lives, well, his undead, just for a chance to kill the gargoyle if the possibility wasn't big, and such possibility also had to be with his undead coming out safe and complete. If the plan succeeds and Lucky can trap them, Michael would connect their vision with his and plan based on the moment. Just as Lucky and Prince were making moves, Michael was also having the other undead in the bottom more ruined building move too. Chapter 88 Battle Over. Michael once again felt the inconvenience of not having all of his undead inside the netherworld, where he could summon and dismiss them at will. Right now, if he didn't want to accidentally lose one of them in the crossfire between Lucky, Prince, and the two flying gargoyles, it would be better if they weren't even outside in the first place. Even he wasn't safe outside, but he had no choice but to take everything head-on. Fortunately, the gargoyles' sights were never on him. However, this didn't mean that just because they didn't have their sight on him, they couldn't kill him. After all, those stone spears earlier seemed like magical rockets with the destruction they laid down. If one was to accidentally touch him, he knew he'd die. At that point, the only undead he'd be able to use were the ones he had in the netherworld, since he could just tug at their connection with the netherworld to summon them back to him, even if they were far away in another world. The mana would be something scary though. However, for the ones he couldn't summon into the netherworld before and died while reviving in another part of the land of origin, it was best to forget about them. The land of origin was very vast. Michael had seen a post on the forum once from someone who shared his experience of being best friends with another Awakener in the real world. Despite this, they didn't meet again in the land of origin until they both advanced to rank 3, 10 years later. For all Michael knew, if he died now, he could be 7 big continents distant away from here. If they were any ordinary undead, Michael wouldn't care much, but his undead just happened to be special. Regardless of whether his talent could always make more, just like how a rich man could make $10,000 a day didn't mean he'd feel normal throwing $5,000 away. Okay, maybe it was that Michael was selfish as he was greedy, but it certainly wouldn't feel great to die and, on top of that, lose access to his undead and be forced to break the soul contract he shared with them, while taking a backlash multiple times due to this as well. There was also the part that his daily points would reduce, and 10% of his stats. The current Michael was extremely unwilling to lose. All in all, he wasn't trying to die in this fight but win it. And if he couldn't, come back another day when he's stronger, which wouldn't take long. All these thoughts flashed through Michael's mind. Using the share senses O skill, he saw what was happening in the dome in front of him through the eyes of Lucky and Prince. In the wine dome, the two gargoyles had little place to fly. Around them were numerous vines trying to entangle them. Also, the dome seemed to be getting smaller, further cornering them. They also tried to cast spells in haste, getting hit every single time they were interrupted by vines. Even if they successfully cast a skill, it did little damage to the vines in a place where there were more than enough. All this was Lucky acting against the gargoyle, with Prince occasionally harassing at the side. From what Michael could see, it seemed that if one could reduce the gargoyle's advantage of flight, they weren't so scary anymore. Of course, this was only possible because they held a weakness against the gargoyle. If the gargoyles had nothing to be concerned about except for attacking, Michael could foresee a long, drawn-out, difficult battle. Fortunately, it seemed things were finally going to his advantage. Moments passed like this, and the wine dome grew smaller and smaller until finally, Lucky was able to entangle the two gargoyles. They struggled hard, but was Michael going to let them go after so much effort? Tear them to pieces, Michael ordered in a cold tone, and Lucky obeyed without hesitation. Surrounded by vines, Lucky pulled and pulled until finally, like stones, the gargoyles were separated into pieces. Your undead, Lucky, has killed a level 25, level 39, wing gargoyle and gained 3650 for EXP. Stay tuned with Empire. You've received feedback from your undead, Lucky, and gained 448 EXP. Your undead, Lucky, has killed a level 25, level 37, wing gargoyle and gained 3547 EXP. You've received feedback from your undead, Lucky, and gained 389 EXP. Michael then went down to a notification he had ignored before. Your undead, Prince, has killed a level 20, level 27, gargoyle and gained 2888 EXP. You've received feedback from your undead, Prince, and gained 257 EXP. Knowing that experience points would only ever come from the dead, Michael's troubled heart was finally at ease. Mentally commanding Lucky to remove the dome, he turned to check both his and his undead's progress. Venom-Torn Ravager LV25, Max. Name, Lucky. EXP, 805,990/1,021,752. Rank, Extraordinary. Skills, Bite, Plant Control, Advanced Mastery, Poison, Advanced Mastery, Viral Growth, Basic Mastery, Toxic Resurgence, Basic Mastery. A Master, Michael Norman. Undead Red-Torn LV25, Max. Asterisk. Name, Prince. EXP, 238,677/1,021,752. Rank, Rare. Skills, Bite, Plant Control, Intermediate Mastery, Poison, Basic Mastery. A Master, Michael Norman. The experience points gained from killing the gargoyles were not insignificant. It brought Lucky and Prince closer to rank 2, especially the former. Right now, Lucky only needed about 100,000 more experience points to advance. Basically, about 100 more gargoyles and Lucky would be able to advance, Michael thought, shaking his head. Though it seemed difficult, at least Lucky was closer to ranking up than he was. Chapter 89 Looting and Loots. Looking at how his experience points to level up had almost filled by 1/10, Michael deduced that, just as Lucky would require about 100 gargoyles to advance, he himself would likely level up alongside his undead's advancement based on the experience points feedback alone. Dismissing the panels in front of him, Michael hopped onto the back of the undead verdant wolf at his side and mentally commanded it to head toward Lucky's position, not sparing a single thought for how the undead beneath him might feel. Unnamed Undead, Tired Smiley. As Michael made his way toward Lucky and Prince's position near the remains of the gargoyle, rather than summoning them to come to him, he took the opportunity to observe his surroundings. With the undead having withdrawn their wines, his view of the land of origin was no longer obstructed. What greeted him was a desolate expanse of ruins, much of it newly devastated by his undead skills and the gargoyle's barrage of stone spears. Behind him lay the remnants of a wide building, something he had taken note of after spending so much time in the abandoned dormitory. However, as he scanned the area further, it became clear that only the structures still bore any semblance of their former glory. The Naurin dormitory behind him and the shiny black tower looming ahead. Every other building had long since collapsed, with their remains further reduced to rubble by the rampage of the undead wolves and the gargoyles. The ruins appeared to be situated within a forest, as beyond its crumbling premises lay a wide expanse of dense greenery. While Michael was curious about whether civilization lay beyond the forest, exploring it was far from his current priority. If he was going to investigate anything, it would be these ruins. You all should spread out and bring me anything that's not stone or sand. Don't break anything. And you there, gather the remains of those gargoyles. Michael commanded the 7 undead standing behind him. For the task of collecting the gargoyle remains, he assigned it to the humanoid undead with functional hands. He didn't trust Lucky or Prince with such a task. The ruins themselves seemed largely devoid of anything noteworthy, except for the shiny black tower in the distance. Even then, there was no guarantee that it would yield any rewards. The remains of the gargoyles, however, were a different matter entirely. Despite their stone-like appearance, Michael suspected their bodies contained special materials. Given the gargoyles' rank and strength, he was convinced their remains might be worth a significant amount. Michael had no concrete understanding of the power level of a rank 3 creature, but he estimated the gargoyles his undead had defeated were at least on par with that level of cultivation. His commands were also deliberately simple to avoid confusion. If he had told the undead to bring back anything valuable, it would have depended entirely on their limited understanding of value. One might think a random stone was precious and present proudly. Still, Michael didn't harbor much hope. The ruins looked desolate, and even if there were valuable items hidden within, his basic undead would likely overlook them. In the end, this was just the first round of screening. If nothing else, it served the secondary purpose of cleaning up the space and making the search later easier. It wasn't until the remains of all the gargoyles were brought together and placed in front of Michael that he used detect on them. A gargoyle LV 20. Rank rare. This was the one that had blocked his entrance for days. Finally, after the battle, Michael felt the satisfaction of overcoming such an obstacle. It would have been easier had it not been for the 2 additional gargoyles, but fortunately, everything had ended well. Next, Michael checked the 2 other gargoyles he was curious about. Wing Gargoyle LV 25. Rank rare. Wing Gargoyle LV 25. Rank rare. Just 3-star rare creatures. Michael muttered, a bit surprised. He had suspected that having wings might imply a higher rank, possibly the same as Lucky's, but that wasn't the case. In fact, they were at the same level as the wingless gargoyle. Michael wasn't shocked by the revelation, though. He already knew that even within the same rank, there could be variations. A normal slime was a 1-star common rank, just like a goblin, but the goblin is generally more versatile in many aspects. If they were extraordinary creatures, even if Lucky's race happened to be ranked higher, it would have been a 2 versus 1 fight with a very high chance of losing, Michael mused. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, the gargoyles dropped no loot like spirit crystals or anything. Is it because they were artificially made? Michael wondered, uncertain, but feeling that might be the reason. Regardless, it wasn't like he hadn't gained something of value from the gargoyles. After dismantling the bodies and using detect on each part individually, Michael discovered the following loot. Find more chapters on Empire. Obsidian Forge Alloy. A blend of dark metals and obsidian-like minerals, offering a stone-like texture combined with flexibility and high durability. Commonly used for constructing durable constructs or golems. Vein Shard. A lightweight yet durable fragment with blue-green veins, often used to craft mana-conductive tools. Feather Plate. Flexible, metallic plates as light as feathers, ideal for creating aerodynamic constructs. Core Stone. Dense, black material prized for its ability to store and stabilize mana. Crystal Sphere. A smooth, patterned stone utilized in crafting energy detectors and amplifiers. Etherstone. A pale, translucent stone with anti-gravitational properties, frequently used in levitation devices. Runed Core. An irregular core marked by glowing runes, functioning as a power source for advanced machinery. Somehow, Reading the description of everything felt like looking at a technological invention. Seems like the gargoyle is referred to as a golem. This made Michael recall Mita and her class, alchemist. With his knowledge of fantasy from Earth, this felt like a magical scientist version, but he could be wrong. However, if he was right, Michael briefly wondered if Mita could one day create something like this. If she can, then alchemist is probably a strong, rare class, assuming it's even a rare class. Chapter 90, A Sudden Idea. Looking at the nature of his loot, Michael wore a thoughtful expression. His gaze shifted to the towering black structure in the distance. Was this place some sort of research site in the past? The intricate design and functionality of the gargoyle's internal mechanisms amazed him. Even after years of abandonment, it still functioned, albeit at a diminished rank. This alone was a testament to the skill and ingenuity of its creators. However, the strength of the gargoyle also gave him pause. The ruins had clearly been abandoned for many years, yet the signs of decay were natural, not the aftermath of a violent conflict. So, where did all the people who once lived here go? Michael frowned, considering the possibilities. Did they evacuate, taking everything valuable with them? However, what could make people with such resources evacuate? Michael wasn't the best at analyzing such things, and after some fruitless speculation, he gave up. Whatever happened here is long in the past. The place is abandoned now, but I should still be cautious. Who knows what kind of inventions might still remain? Michael's expectations weren't high. This wasn't a place destroyed suddenly, but one that seemed systematically evacuated. Anything of real value would have been taken long ago, and whatever wasn't would have likely deteriorated into dust by now. Still, he clung to the hope of finding something worthwhile to sell and make some money. Unbeknownst to Michael, his sense of value was slowly being warped. Compared to the evolution points his talent provided, everything else seemed trivial. Where others might feel disappointed at the likely lack of treasure, Michael simply shrugged and continued with the flow, focusing on potential sales. Read new chapters at Empire. With such a skewed mindset, only time would tell what Michael might consider valuable. Michael stopped dwelling on the possible history of the ruins and stored all the remains of the gargoyles in his storage space. It's a pity they're non-flesh monsters, so I can't use undead revival on them, he muttered. The thought frustrated him. After witnessing the gargoyle's prowess and flight capabilities, his wish to add a flying undead to his arsenal increased. Unfortunately, it seemed that wish would not be easily fulfilled. If only I could evolve normal animals like eagles. Michael abruptly paused, his expression shifting as he clenched his teeth. Did I seriously only think of this now? As long as it was a living creature with flesh, it could be turned into an undead. Eagles, or even something as mundane as fish, fit the criteria perfectly. The thought struck him as both simple and ingenious. Most necromancers wouldn't bother with ordinary animals, seeing it as a waste of a valuable contract slot. But Michael, with his unique ability to acquire high-rank undead without much difficulty, could afford to think differently. An ordinary animal is probably, at best, a one-star common-rank creature. But after becoming an undead, surely I could use my evolution points on it, right? The moment the idea took hold, Michael couldn't shake it. His mind spun with possibilities. Ants, bees, countless other creatures with fascinating traits. What would happen if he evolved them? The thought filled him with a newfound curiosity and excitement for experimentation. However, knowing he had tasks to focus on, Michael forced himself to calm down. Once he settled his thoughts, Michael shifted his gaze toward the Black Tower. Taking a deep breath, he mentally commanded Lucky and Prince to follow him, positioning them in front as he approached the entrance of the imposing structure. The entrance was a black, metal double door that appeared heavy and formidable at first glance. But Michael wasn't particularly concerned. Whether metal or stone, enough brute force would bring it down eventually. Scanning his surroundings briefly, he called over one of the orcs nearest to him, interrupting its search for items. "Break it down," Michael ordered, pointing directly at the doors. The ORC, without hesitation, followed the command. It reeled back its fist and delivered a powerful punch to the door. Boom! A loud impact echoed, but the door remained undamaged. Instead, intricate magic circles glowed faintly on its surface, absorbing the force of the attack. Magic circles, and they're still functional. Michael murmured, a mix of surprise and intrigue in his tone. Despite the apparent obstacle, Michael remained unfazed. "Continue. Don't stop." The ORC obeyed, hammering the door with relentless punches. Bang, bang, bang. The once quiet ruins, briefly tranquil after the battle with the gargoyles, were now alive with noise again. Michael observed silently as the ORC's attacks persisted. Gradually, he noticed the light from the magic circles dimming with each strike. Not surprising, Michael thought. After so many years, they shouldn't be at their peak. It's only a matter of time. The ORC, being undead with infinite stamina, can keep this up for days if necessary. The fact that the magic circles were still operational gave Michael hope. If the tower's defenses had lasted this long without maintenance, there was a good chance valuable treasures might still lie within. As the ORC continued its relentless assault, Michael briefly considered scouting other parts of the ruins. However, he quickly dismissed the thought when he noticed faint mist seeping from the ORC's body. The body of the ORC also increased slightly, but it was visible. Curious, Michael tugged at his connection with the ORC and realized it had become frustrated with its lack of progress. In its irritation, the ORC had instinctively activated one of its skills. Bang! Bang! The strikes became harder, faster, and more forceful. The magic circle's light dimmed at a noticeably quicker pace. Momentarily shifting his focus from the door, Michael checked the details of the skill the ORC had activated. It was one he hadn't checked before, despite all the time spent evolving his undead. A Berserk, basic mastery, proficiency, 0.7%. Berserk temporarily increases the user's physical strength and agility by 25% each, at the cost of reducing defense by 10% and significantly increasing aggression. Stamina is rapidly drained when skill is active.